Hi there, this is a video to show you how to float your yarns on the Spring Rose tank top. So as you can see inside, I have floated all my yarns up the sides so that I don't have loads of ends to weave in. You've got lots of yarn floats, these are the yarn floats on both edges, on the neck edge and the armhole edge, and I have also done it up the back on the inside. Now I've shown this before, I do this in lots of my patterns, but I'm going to show you how to do it on these shoulder sections because they can be a bit fiddly. So I'm going to start with row 1 of the pattern. I've just completed row 1, which is the left shoulder section, and I'm going to pull up a loop. So I've just done my last stitch. I'm going to pull up a loop and I'm going to pass my ball of yarn through the loop. So you might want to wind your yarn into a ball. I'm just lazy and I don't. So you're going to pull that yarn tight and then you're ready to start row 2. So to start row 2 you need to turn your work, and what you need to make sure is when you start your first stitch, which is going to go into the top of your last treble, you make sure that you are not trapping your floated yarn and holding it across. So you need to make sure that it's away to the side. I am using a slightly different pink for row 2 for yarn B than I used in the pattern because I've run out of that pink. This is just a stand-in. So we're going to start with a standing stitch. So you're going to yarn over your hook twice and you're going to work your first stitch into there and making sure that you don't trap this yarn. So make sure that that floated yarn is well away to the side. Then work the rest of row 2. Work your last stitch into the top of the stacked double crochet that you started with. And now you're ready to float your yarn again. So draw up a large loop, big enough to pass your ball of yarn through. Take your ball of yarn, pass it through and pull tight. Okay, so that's row 2 complete. So now you're ready to start row 3. So you're going to take your balls of yarn and just swap them over and then turn your work over so that you've got yarn A on your left and yarn B on your right. And now you're ready to start with yarn C. So you can start with the standing stitch in the same way, float your yarn in the same way at the end, and continue to do that until you've got all of your colours attached. I'm using 5 colours for mine, so I will see you at the end of row 5 and the start of row 6 to show you how to start floating your yarns. So I've now worked the first 5 rows of my front shoulder section. So I've just finished row 5 and I've floated my yarn in the exact same way as I have with all the other colours. So it does look a bit scrappy at this point because you've got all your colours still attached and you've got all your tails left from where you started off. So I've got 3 colours on this side and 2 colours on this side. So I've got all of the balls attached on the left in my left hand and all of the balls still attached to the right hand side in my right hand. And so I'm going to turn my work. So what I'm going to do is pick up these balls with my left hand, these balls with my right hand, and just flip them over and turn my work so I've got the wrong side of my last row facing me, and now all my balls are on the correct side. So what I need to do now is to start row 6 using the fuchsia colour. So I'm just going to take that yarn. Now you can see that this is the wrong side of my work. We can tell this because the wrong side of the stitches in row 1 are facing us. So when it's that way round, that's the right side because we've got the right side of these stitches facing. When it's that way round, that's the wrong side of our top. We want to float our yarn up the wrong side of our top so it doesn't show. So what I'm going to need to do is just to bring that pink underneath there and make sure that it's coming up on the wrong side. So I'm floating my yarn up the inside. I'm going to just hold my yarn at the height of the row, and then I am going to yarn over twice, ready to do my standing stitch, and make sure that I am holding my hook at the height of a UK treble stitch and a UK double crochet stitch. So I'm ready to do my standing stitch into that first stitch. So I'm making sure that that is not being pulled, the float's not being pulled, and making sure that I'm holding it high enough to get that first stitch in the right place. So I'm just going to work my standing stitch into there. And you can see that my float's got plenty of slack and it's not going to be pulling too tight. So now I'm ready to do my one treble in the first space. So I've completed my row. I'm just ready to do my last stitch into the top of the last stitch, and that is my row complete. And I'm going to float my yarn again by picking up the ball and passing it through the loop. And now I've got this one on this side, I've got these two on this side, these three on this side, and now I'm going to turn my work again. And I'm ready to start the next colour, which is the pink. So again, I just need to take my pink ball, and we've now got the right side of my work facing, because I've got the right side of the stitches on row 1 facing. So what I need to do is to make sure that my pink yarn goes up the back of the work, because this is the wrong side, so we want to float it up the back. And hold it at the height of your row, and then yarn over twice, and just make sure that it is the height of the stitch that you want to create, and then you're ready to create your first standing stitch again, and then you're ready to work the rest of your row. So that's how I float my yarns. It does look quite scrappy at the start, as you'll see from the pictures in the pattern, but once you've slip stitched around the armhole and around the neck edge for your rib, you won't see any of that messy part at all. One thing I do just want to point out is that I'm on row 9 now. You can see that when you go to work into the top of your standing stitch, you can see that the floated yarn kind of like goes across like that. So it's not exactly coming out the side, it's kind of going across here. So what you have to do is you have to yarn over to do your last treble, just go underneath it and then go into the top of your standing stitch and work your stitch like that, so that you're basically pushing it away to the side, because it does have a habit of just sort of being there. So yarn over, go underneath it, and then go into the top of your standing stitch and work your treble, and then it will be trapped at the side like that. So I've just finished row 10. So row 10 is the first one of our front neck like increase rows. So I'm just going to grab all my balls of yarn and flip my work, turn my work over. So I'm just going to show you that you can still float your yarns even though you're increasing. So the next colour is the fuchsia, and we are going to be, we've got our right side facing, so we want the fuchsia yarn to come up the back of our work. So it does take a little bit of fiddling around to get your balls in the right order. So our fuchsia yarn is going to come up the back, and even though we're increasing, we are still going to float our yarn. So I'm just yarning over twice my standing stitch, and I'm still going to go into the stitch in exactly the same way. We're increasing, so we're working a whole 3 treble group there, and then just continue to work your row as normal. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to increase on this edge now, but I'm still going to float my yarns even though I'm increasing, because they're all going to be hidden when you work your rib around here anyway. So we've reached the end of row 13 of our neck shaping, and at this point you're asked to put a stitch marker in here, and you are going to start the other side, so the right front. Now if you are floating your yarn, the only yarns that you actually need to cut off are the ones on the neck edge. So this is the neck here, and this is the armhole. So this is the neck edge. You need to cut these off because you can't carry on floating these because this is going to be joined. Okay, you can actually keep the ones on the outside edge, the armhole edge, still attached because you're going to carry on working across here. So you could actually carry on floating these yarns. So that's why I've asked you to put a stitch marker in there. But that only works if you've got separate balls of these yarns, of these colours, and this one, to use to make the right front edge. Now I did, because I had 50-gram balls mostly, so I had separate balls which I could use to make my right front edge. But because I've made my vest and these are leftovers, I only have these colours. I don't have any more balls, so I am going to have to snip them all off to make the other side. So I'm going to take this out. You can keep those ones attached if you have separate balls of yarn to make your right front. So now I'm going to go ahead and make my right front and show you how I attach them.